I want to start this day with a topic which is informative about the framework we are working within at EASA, especially for STCs. So the following presentation is about STC projects management. What is it all about? I'm not going to make a very theoretical presentation. I just want to give you as much information as possible to understand what's going on here, the way we are dealing with this kind of projects, and what measures we have put in place to be as good as possible. So it's always difficult to make a hierarchy between topics, being it from the top down or bottom up or whatever theory you otherwise have heard of. So I've tried to make something that's confusing everyone to avoid anyone thinking one topic is more important than the other. So I will just mention those 4 topics in further details afterwards. So one is about the newsletter we are using regularly. One is about what do we do with your questions? How do we deal with that? We have a very mysterious topic called CT2020 and what happens after the workshop. So it's mysterious probably only for you, but I know a lot of colleagues I see there in the back of the room, they know a lot about it, as Carla was in charge of managing this effort. So, mentioning STC management wouldn't be actually complete if we wouldn't talk about the evolutions it has known. Because at organizational level, we have had a lot of changes since EASA has happened. So I won't go back to the origin of EASA, just have 3 points I think are particularly important for you and for me. So in 2014, it was decided during one of the changes of our organization to put the responsibility of all STC projects related questions on one particular section manager. So it was the creation of what we called at that time the STC section. And going on with the time and experience, we had in 2017 change in the organization where our colleague Carla took over this section and completely, I would say, renewed and redefined the communication we had with the outside world. So this is what you know as of today. In terms of STC Workshop, interactivity, the newsletter, and all the details I'm going to talk about. And then in 2019, so today, actually since the 1st of April, we have this famous CT2020 changes which have been implemented. The implementation has started. We are going to finalize everything as soon as possible, but all the decisions have been made, and I'm going to talk about it. So, of course, more STC coordination for the topics around STC is necessary. This is what we have recognized, and I think this is what we want to show you, that we are always trying to go this direction. So CT2020, I always made it short. Actually, the real name is CT2020 Roadmap. So what is that? Why is that? So why? I have a couple of keywords here you can see on the screen. I will go very quickly through that. I don't want to make it more detailed than necessary. So, of course, one word you will find everywhere, not only at EASA, it's efficiency. So we are trying to get better with regards to efficiency. We want to prepare for the future. So some of you might have heard that we have a basic regulation which has changed. So this fundamental code, which is actually defining our mandate, has been extended to, in particular, dual and military platforms. Of course, I know that especially the STC holders are very creative, and that's the reason why we are every day confronted or delighted to see your new ideas, and which is actually covered by the point at the bottom with new technologies and innovation. So, of course, we will not detail this point, but you all have probably somewhere in the back of your head something that was a bit innovative, or for aviation at least innovative, and for which EASA had to adapt a bit. And of course, internally, we have our own challenges with digitalization. Some of you are very digital, some are less, but we are actually in the process of being more digital. Our integration of discipline and processes is something that is actually a key aspect of working actually according to your expectations. So time and money. Yeah. Strategy orientation, of course, is another point that we need to take into account. So I mentioned the new regulatory environment on a detailed point of military applications, but there are other regulatory environment changes we have to take into account. And of course, we are here to maintain and to develop to the highest level safety and environmental sustainability standards. So we never forget doing all that, more efficient, faster, better communication. At the end, our basic mandate is the one on the top right, safety, environmental standards. So, if we go to the next slide, you will see actually what is, you have seen the why. Yeah, now we are going to see a bit the goals, and what is CT2020 at all? The name in itself, it's perhaps a bit mysterious. I just want to make it a bit easier to understand. So CT is our certification directorate, and 2020, this is next year. So if you see that, then it's quite clear what we are going to do. We are going to change this certification directorate, and we need to be ready by 2020. So far we are on track, huh, Carla, you confirm? Okay, so the overall goals: compacted organization, product coherence, new technical challenges, programming functions, and balanced department. I'm not going to develop all the points, don't worry, because they are not all relevant for you, but can just tell you a couple of key facts. So compacted organization, for example, we have less departments than before. So we are now with 6 departments. And of course, we are trying to get more synergies happening between different parts of our organization. So it is one of the product coherence topics, so trying to move products which are similar together and those which are then too, I would say, different from each other. We kept them a bit separated. I won't go through the other points. I think we are going to see on the next one, but there are actually 2 particular points which are relevant for you. So product coherence. So far, general aviation was alone in the department. It was decided that smaller CS-25 aircraft, so we are talking here about business jets, could be put together in the whole effort. So this is not only about product coherence, this is also about balanced departments, trying to have actually the same level of attention from the head of department for each and single person in program. So you can imagine that if you have one department with 80 people and the other one with 40 people, you don't have the same level of attention from your boss. So this is something we have tried to balance. And in the same move, we were able then to put aircraft together where actually the strategy we are using inside the project could be adapted according to the challenges, the technical and certification challenges to the aircraft. That being said, in a very theoretical manner, I can just put it that way. It is not necessary to have it always the large transport, commercial transport aircraft way for those smaller CS-25 aircraft. There are possibilities then to adapt a bit to make a lighter process. And this is something we think that will happen more often if you put the people together who are working on those smaller CS-25 aircraft and the general aviation people. So this is the product coherence. New technical challenges. So disruptive technologies and mission equipment, we all know about it. We are talking about 3D printing. We are talking about those pods we are installing, or you are installing. Sorry, I'm not installing anything myself, but I would like to. It's not part of my job today. Point is, those changes, which are in the field of innovation, in the field of new to aviation, perhaps not new to other fields or other branches, are in the focus of this particular point. And we are trying to have an organization which will be more agile, which will be more in the line of having you satisfied more quickly, because we know that being efficient is about listening to what you want. So those new technical challenges can be tackled by slight changes in the organization, but they can be tackled by the fact that we have innovation groups which are put together. They can be tackled by the fact that everyone is aware of several processes we have put in place in case of new technologies showing up. So it's not always like apply for an STC and you will see what happens. We have the possibility to use the technical advice contracts, for example, which is a revisited process compared with what you might have seen in the past years. And of course, as I mentioned, we have dedicated groups which are looking into things like blockchain, this kind of fancy things which are coming really to aviation today. So what will be an organization change without an organigram? So don't worry, we are not going to go box by box. You might have seen that, of course, if you are very familiar with the EASA organization, there are changes there. What is really relevant for you is in the green frame. So I will just zoom in and tell you just a couple of very simple things. So you will see the 4 departments there. From the left to the right, large aeroplane. This is still as it used to be. Minus, of course, the smallest CS-25 airplane. I'm going to talk a bit more about the details which have changed, but this department is there. The second one is general aviation. So a new box is there, jet airplanes. It's for the smaller CS-25 ones. Then CT3 being VTOL. So you perhaps remember it being called rotorcraft in the past. VTOL is actually a more generic wording, I would say, for all the products you will find under this department scope. And CT4, this is very new, environmental and propulsion system. So we have put our colleagues from the environmental standards together with our propulsion colleagues, which is actually absolutely logic. If you think about it, most of the noise coming out of an aircraft is coming from the engine. Clear? So propulsion and noise together, absolutely clear. Environmental, in terms of emissions, is the same. So putting everyone into a department was just something that was intuitive. I just wanted to make a short dive into the first department, CT1, because we have something that's here quite interesting. We have split actually the large transport airplanes between the EU products and the non-EU products. This is a matter of having perhaps the same topics being dealt with by the same head of section, and then you are going to European products which are quite different. I don't want to go too deep into that because it's not directly relevant for you. What you might find out is that there is no special, in the special aeroplanes and projects, there is no STC mentioned. So you have not disappeared, we know you're here, I can see you. The change that was done is that the STC coordination was actually moved up to the level of the department, so CT1. So you won't find it directly in the box, but more to it afterwards. So what you might have heard, I don't know, perhaps some of my colleagues have informed you already, is that we are rotating some PCMs. What does it mean? We have actually always made the effort to not keep one particular person in contact with one particular company forever. We are rotating. So I would say, average duration of, I would say, someone being in charge of a particular company is supposed to be 5 years. Can be a bit less, can be a bit more, but we are trying to organize us around that. So we used this CT2020 Roadmap effort to implement that again. And some of you having a focal point PCM, so a PCM who will deal with all your projects, might hear in the near future or have already heard that their PCM is moving on to another organization. Nevertheless, we want to do that, ensuring the continuity of business. So this is not the first time we are doing it. We have done that since a couple of years already, so a couple of iterations, sorry, so many years. And we know how to do that. And the communication here, I have a very generic and not specific communication about it. You will have a very dedicated communication if you are impacted by that. So this is one of the changes. The second point is that there was a STC coordinator role created. So this is me, hello. I'm Nicolas, STC coordinator for the large airplane department. Meaning that the role which was actually taken over by Carla so far as head of CT14, so the former STC and the special airplane section, sorry, is now taken over by me. So it has a couple of advantages. The first one is that it's at department level, so coordination is intuitively easier because I am not bound to a particular section. Second point is that actually it is cross products. So again, I am not put in another section which will be dedicated to a particular product or product type. And then what are we doing about that? So the point here is that we are trying to standardize as much as possible. Speaking with one voice. This is something you will hear here and then in our EASA communications, and we are striving to really achieve that. Another good point is more capacity. Many of you are managers. You know how little time you have for technical topics because you have to deal a lot with management of people. So I am not managing a lot of people, not at all. I am actually managing myself and I have a colleague supporting. So I have more time to dedicate to this role than anyone else, I would say, at management level. And of course, what have I been doing already, helping Carla, and what has Carla done so far? This has not changed. This is crisis support. What do I mean with that? You have a problem with your STC, somehow something is going wrong and you don't know how to get out of this situation. The STC contact points you have at EASA, the person you are dealing with are trying to help, but somehow you all are in a situation where you don't know how to get the situation better. Come to me. I will show you a couple of ways to contact us afterwards, and we will try to raise awareness at management level to get your situation actually solved. So, communication is one of the topics that is always in our mind. I've mentioned that it was one of the big changes that Carla initiated. So, this first newsletter you have received last year in spring was the first of a couple, exactly 4, because we have actually a seasonal frequency. So, you know, the seasons. This is one of our tools we have to put our message with nice pictures and actually kind of keeping EASA closer to you so that you can understand what's going on at EASA, answering some questions and giving you a bit of insight about our staff. So I don't want to be too detailed about that. There will be the next STC newsletter after this workshop. So we did not make it to produce it for having it on the table today. But I think there are a couple of changes ongoing which are actually justifying a later issuance too. So the very good thing about the STC newsletter is that it's direct. So it's not like you have to go onto our website, we distribute it directly. We are trying to give you simple and clear guidelines. So it's actually trying to extend this workshop. During this workshop, we are trying to tell you a bit what we expect, what we understand, what we see in a manner that is as simple as possible. And this is actually what we try to extend with the newsletter. Of course, we are capturing a lot of questions during this workshop, and outside of the workshop, we are getting a lot of questions too. So we are trying to use this means to answer a couple of questions. And as I mentioned, you can have perhaps a closer understanding about what's going on inside EASA. So who are the EASA people, what they are doing, what the background they have, what are the initiatives we are having, without waiting for the workshop. We are very much open for external proposals, by the way, being it for the workshop. We have proposed something for this workshop. We are very happy to have Aerodata and to have Recaro making presentations tomorrow, for example. And for whatever type of communication, we are on the move. We are trying to change things as we see fit. So please do not hesitate to make some proposals if you consider that something could be done better. So I'm saying it for those who have not made proposals already. I know there are a lot of people making proposals. Huh? So thank you, Carla, again, because the newsletter is really your baby. We are going to take good care of it. Okay, you might have seen that we are not the only one sending newsletter. There is something called the J-News, which is, I won't repeat those points because those are exactly the same. I just copy-pasted them, so it's not a mistake. It's just that the goals are exactly the same. The framework is different. We are here talking about STC projects, and the J-News are talking about the DOA organizations and processes. So we are fully complementary. So I did talk a lot about us. Now I want to talk a bit more about you. We have received some questions. We always have, but we started to implement processes trying to answer them better. In 2017, to give you an idea, we received during the workshop, we have captured those questions, we have received 77 questions. The year after, thanks to the introduction of Slido, we have been able to capture 143 questions. So thank you very much for that. This is a lot of work, but this is exactly what we need. We need your questions, we need your inputs. This is only this way that we can really understand what you need, what you feel, and if we are going in the right direction whenever we are doing changes in our processes. So this is quite impressive, I must say. And about the 2017 questions, so those coming from the workshop, we were able to answer a majority of those during the workshop. And afterwards, there was a dedicated communication. You might remember a letter which has been sent by Carla afterwards in several issues, I would say. So the completion was in January 2018. So 2018, of course, is a much larger challenge for several reasons. You might have heard that we have a couple of challenges more to deal with right now than last year, which is actually good. I like challenges. This is actually showing that our organization is working when we still work, perhaps a little bit slower, but we are still able to cope with that. So 143 questions we have had during the workshop, 27 which we were able to answer, and 14 through the newsletter. And of course, there will be, we haven't sent it yet, a dedicated communication about the around about 100 questions which are left. We consider that we will be able to have answered all those questions by September. And there will be a preview tomorrow because we have already answered several. So we have already a consolidated answer for 45 of those questions, and those are in the presentation of tomorrow. I hope we'll be able to show everything in the presentation tomorrow of the 45. If not, anyway, this is a preview. We are going to publish those answers most probably on our website. We are still defining exactly the container and how to do that, because this is quite a batch of questions and answers. We are trying to make it as good as possible so that it's easy to handle. So, I'm repeating a bit myself compared with what I've said at the very beginning of today. Please use Slido for the questions. This is giving you all the chance to ask your own questions and to be sure that those will be really recorded. And we will be able to answer all of those as soon as possible, probably in the coming months, if not during the workshop. What I wanted to say about that is that we are actually really in need of getting your questions. We do not know how to get better if we have no feedback. We can always try to get better, but we don't know if it's really working. So, this afternoon, I mentioned it a bit just before the first presentation, there will be a so-called counseling event. So some of you might remember the side meetings which have happened in the past years. We had several rooms, each room dedicated to a topic. We are trying to make it a little bit more flexible today. So what we will do is after lunch, we will remain in the lunch room, which is the Boeing room, and we will be together with experts from different panels. So I don't know if we have the plates here with the name plates. Anyway, we have different panels from almost all disciplines who will be available, and those persons will be there for you. So everyone will be in one room. We will have the tables from lunch, we'll have coffee, and all of you will be able to approach all of those experts and ask them questions individually, face to face, and try to get then your answers, being it for your own project. Well, of course, we don't know all projects from EASA, huh? So that's please be realistic. But otherwise, I mean, we are trying to have as many experts as possible there for you to have your questions answered and to have it really on an individual basis. And for me, this is something where I say, I am open for proposals. So we are trying to change things to get better. If you, after this day, think that it was working perfectly, I'm happy to hear it. If you think it was not helpful, I'm happy to hear it too. I will try to do something different next year. So again, for the format of the workshop, we are open for proposals. And we are always there for you if you want to send us questions. So how to send us questions? I mentioned that so often I did not even count. However, I did not say how. So we have different channels of communication. So in the middle, there are the videos. If you look in the middle of the room, we have a camera team, like last year, like the year before. And everything that is being shown here will be then on YouTube. I think we have around 110 participants today. But of course, you all know that there are many more people working for certification directly and people impacted by certification indirectly. I had a look at that just before the workshop, and I think we have registered something like over 5,000 people working directly for the DOA organizations in Europe. Might be even more, I'm not sure of all the figures, depending on the organization of each and every company. But of course, the DOA organization is just one part of the whole company usually. Yeah? So all those people are not here today. Majority of the people impacted are not here. So I would like to encourage you to mention to them that we have this YouTube channel, that we have those presentations there. The videos are per topic, so it's not like 6 hours of video and you try to find something interesting. It's really, each video is for a different topic. So if you're looking for guidance about lithium batteries, if you're looking for guidance about mission equipment, medical installations, we have that on our YouTube channel about the STC workshop. So this is about the videos. Otherwise, if you want to ask questions outside of the workshop, we don't have Slido all year long open. You can send it to the email address you see here, so stc_news@easa.europa.eu. This is open all year long. You can send it. We are looking into that and trying to find answers for that. And of course, we are going to use our STC webpage as we are already doing. There is a FAQ, so frequent asked questions section there. The point afterwards is to see how we can enrich that. So probably we are going to put the questions there with the answers. Depending on how we can do that, it might be directly in the FAQ page or in a different container. And again, I would just encourage you to use our website. It is much better than it used to be some years ago. So I can just tell you, have a look at that. It has been completely changed to be used with handheld devices, so tablets and smartphones. And I can tell you that now when I'm looking for something there, I find it. So it's good. So please spread the word. Be the ambassadors of the Certification Directorate in your own organization. I'm always very pleased to see you here at EASA, being it at the workshop or outside of the workshop. In the meantime, some of us know each other very well. So thank you very much for that. And this is the end. So thank you for listening to this presentation. I promise the next presentations will be more dedicated to technical topics, but it was very important for us to give you this level of information about what we are trying to reach and what we have effectively done for you, for us, to have certification reaching the goals we have set to this industry, getting better, getting safer and more environmental friendly. Thank you very much. So we mentioned Slido and your questions. Sorry, we mentioned Slido and your questions during all the presentation. So now we have a couple of those. Yes. Which one did you? Okay. So we have a question about our certification director. I know. So the question is from Mr. Nigel Wright, and the title of our certification director accurately is acting certification director. And the question is, when will this be changed into certification director without the acting? So when will the appointment be confirmed? So Carla can answer this question.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome again. There are still some formal administrative steps to be completed, but if they are ongoing, and so it's not possible to provide you a complete, accurate answers because the things are under progress. Okay. But okay. This is the status at the moment.
Thank you, Carla. Mr. Clementi has a question about, I will just read it. Prior to the application, it will be helpful to have a contact at EASA to talk about the project. How can we find a responsible PCM? I think this is quite easy. You can ask either a PCM that you know, because we all know who is in charge of what. Or you can ask me. You can, of course, contact me through the channels we have mentioned just before. And it is possible to find out who is in charge of what. There is a table. We don't publish this table for several reasons. The first one is about personal data we don't want to put on the website. And the second is that actually we are changing those lists, who is responsible of what, quite regularly. So it is actually easier to keep it internally and to answer on demand, I would say. Yes, Mr. Clementi.
Sorry for stepping in, but the point is, even you may change within the next year, maybe 2 years. Absolutely. So I would recommend or propose a kind of mail address where we can ask for a PCM, because to ask Paul Hatton, who is responsible for that and that aircraft, he may know, he may not, or he is available or not. So I think it's a way which is not necessary. If I have a one dedicated address given in the EASA webpage, then I can address that quite clearly, and I do not have to get about over other persons.
Applicant services? There is indeed, when you are making your application, and it is on our website, a generic mailbox which is called applicant services. So this is our colleagues from RS, so from the application department, and they are absolutely aware of who is in charge of what. So you can always send a question. If you don't reach any PCM by other means, I mean, you can send to this applicant services mailbox, which you will find on our website, a question, and they will find us. They always find us. Thank you.
Sorry, just to complement, because the RS department, of course, is fully coordinated with the larger airplane departments. So we have our focal point, you know, that is Magda Lola, and Magda is also here, and she brilliantly coordinates with the RS department, that is the application department. So I would confirm again, as Nicola said, first entry point would be EASA applicant service, and they will immediately coordinate with our focal from large airplanes to provide you the feedback. Because the list of all the PCMs is kept up to date, and they both have the list available. This would be our recommendation.
Okay, Ms. Hasbrook has a question. During the non-availability of a dedicated PCM, so vacation, travel, sick leave, whatever, could it be considered that the STC workshop is the STC coordinator is the backup? I believe that this is probably not always possible.
Maybe I can.
Well, I can answer that. I mean, we have actually, in case of a planned absence, the possibility to organize someone. But if the absence is not planned or whatever is happening, for each product we have at EASA, we have a PCM and a deputy PCM which are defined. So we have already a deputy PCM we could ask. The problem is, of course, for him to know the project, which is not the case, and which wouldn't be the case anyway.
Nicola, if I may,
Yeah.
this has been a subject that has been taken very much under considerations, also at department level, to properly prepare, you know, before vacation or planned absence for each PCM. That is particularly for the focal PCM, but in general for each PCMs, to anticipate this event and properly coordinate for a backup in that period. And of course, at the extreme situations, normally the STC coordinator and can become partially a backup, but it has been always requested from the head of department to ensure that each PCMs that has planned vacation for a long period of time has to properly coordinate internally to offer a backup to the applicant and to pass the STC applications that are also in a very final stage to a dedicated PCM in order to ensure continuity of work. So I sorry to emphasize that, but we have really already, for example, this year anticipated the vacation period of several PCMs in order to try to accommodate this kind of backup solutions. So
no, thank you.
It's one of our yeah.
Indeed. When we have things under control, we are trying to do that as good as possible. For the emergencies or the cases which are not planned, we are always able to find someone else. The problem is to know for which period of time we are talking about. So if it's only for 3 days, it's probably not worth having someone stepping into the project. That's just what I wanted to add. Mr. Wright has a question. Under the new technical challenges points, what is meant by disruptive? This is a very good question indeed. You are part of the innovation cell? No, not at all.
Not at all, but
okay.
Well, disruptive is not a negative word, has not a negative connotation. I mean, disruptive in the frame of innovative aspects is more, I would say, in the directions of new technologies, you know, I would say a new business entrance. So something that is deviating, I would say, from the normal products or normal technologies that we are presently working with, something that is breaking, you know, the standard technology and is entering into innovations. So I would just want to warn, this is not a negative connotation. On the contrary, it's something that we are going to hear more and more, and is in the interest of EASA, and I think internationally and globally, you know, and this is already started to focus the attention on the future and on the disruptive technologies and in innovative products. So it's absolutely. I think it's a new term that has been introduced recently, you know, in the market and in the technology field. So therefore also in aviation, but as a positive accent. So,
I think perhaps I can mention two examples.
Yeah,
if you take the example of lithium batteries, this is just a different technology for batteries, but it's not disruptive in the meaning that it's just a battery. So you are using, I would say, the same goals, the same processes, and you have to adapt a bit how to deal with the peculiarities of the technology. But what you want at the end is that this battery is safe. But if you take the example of the blockchain approval technology, this is something we haven't any process to deal with that for the moment. We know it could be very helpful. We know it is existing, but how to insert it into our current system? This is something that still has to find its place because there is nothing addressing it right now. And this is what I think we understand, at least at EASA, under disruptive is, yeah, we need to first find out how to integrate that, because we have no process dedicated to that, or which could be even, you know, remotely related to that. I think this is easier to understand it this way.
Yes.
Oh, a good question for CT2020 Roadmap.
Yes.
What is, Mr. Mazzocchi, what's about a dedicated department of STC for rotorcrafts, so small and large rotorcrafts? So indeed, in the organigram, we have no dedicated STC section or something similar in the rotorcraft department. Carla, you want to say something about it?
Yes, actually, this question was kind of interesting. We were both interested, me and Rochelle, because we see how beneficial is at large airplane department to have gathered, you know, the core business of STC around one coordinator and one entry point, and managing in the way in which is managed, you know, with the different way of allocation the STC. This is not existing at the moment at rotorcraft and general aviation departments. They do have, of course, STC, as you know, you are some of you are coming from rotorcraft domains and general aviations. But they are, I would say, spread in the different sections without collecting them together in a specific area. It has been proposed 1 year ago, the opportunity, thanks to a trade-off study, of having a similar pattern as well as in large airplanes, also in the other departments. For the time being, has not been fully bound in by the other head of departments, but I think Rochelle is very interested in having possibly this kind of standard approach. Of course, it has to be beneficial. So there have to be winning arguments for which this is maybe necessary, and these arguments may come also from you. I mean, if you see a benefits, if you see really important to have a core business STC also at rotorcraft and general aviation level, I would say this is a good opportunity to highlight that, and we can go from there.
Okay, there was a question from oh, sorry, I just skipped one. Mr. Lorenzo del Castillo said, how can I subscribe to the STC newsletter if I'm not receiving it? Just send us an email at the STC News email address I've shown on my presentation. and we will gladly put you in the distribution list. Mr. René Stoll, did I get it right that the new STC coordinator is one level higher than the PCM? I wouldn't say it directly, but I will read the rest of the question first and then give a complete answer. Is there one STC coordinator dedicated to each company? So the level of the STC coordinator, so myself, I'm working directly with the department manager, Ludovic Aron, and who is actually above the 4 sections. So this is a coordination role. I am not the boss of the PCM, so to speak. I am trying to standardize, harmonize, and answer questions as much as I can and as best as I can without being put in a box in any kind of program. So I am, yes, a bit higher in the organigram, but actually I am aside. I would consider myself as being a PCM as others, but being aside. And is there one STC coordinator for each company? Not at all. We have one STC coordinator for the whole large airplane department. And perhaps the question was more about the focal point. We don't have for each DOA organization a focal point. And this is one of the points I want to clarify this year, because we have done that, I would say, always in a bit, let's say, it was always on demand by our management, but one particular company should get a focal PCM. We are trying now to put together criteria to rationalize that a bit. And of course, some companies have, for example, a focal PCM because they have a very high level of activity, but with the time, the level of activity might change. So we might reconsider this, this question in the future. This is one of my, I would say, one of the tasks I have on my plate, what I will look into the coming months, and I will probably make some dedicated communication about that at the next STC workshop, but it's too early for that. Okay, we are coming back to one of the previous questions. It's about the availability of PCMs whenever they are out of office, and what do we do for the same situation in case of experts being out of office? So I think, Carla, you can more or less repeat what you have said, that we are actually putting the same emphasis on preparation, on PCM as well as on experts.
Yes, this is definitely also approached in a similar way. Oui. Of course, is also approached in taking into account the need to also have additional resources. This is fully recognized because you are growing, you know, as applicants. STC holders are more now. Technology is more advanced. That means that in some domains, for example, like avionics, it's not just a question of keeping the same resources, but having experts that are able to manage in the same domain different areas, you know. So there is a clear need to reinforce the domain of expertise. So it's not just tackled with an approach to anticipate the risk of an absence, but I can confirm you is really under high priority, particularly this year, to have a clear visibility on which are the domains, like in fact we know very well flight, avionics, cabin safety, that are needed in this moment. So to really identify well at management level the business needs. So it's not just tackled in terms of pragmatic aspects, but particularly this year, really in terms of prioritizing and pushing for having the right workforce in place on some particular technical domains.